Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Chesterton's Jest, where we shine an unflinching light on the joys, contradictions, and crises within today's Catholic Church and culture. If you're here for faith, wit, and a little righteous fire, you're in the right place. Smash that like button, share this video with your fellow troublemakers, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now then, shall we begin? Our topic, up for discussion today. What really happened after Vatican II? Drift, deception, and division. Chapter 1. The air changed. Vatican II did not deny a single dogma. It did something subtler. It changed the atmosphere. It replaced juridical precision with pastoral elasticity. It favored engagement over confrontation, dialogue over definition, tone over thunder. The Council assumed continuity. It assumed bishops would interpret its texts in the light of tradition. It assumed seminaries would remain metaphysically grounded. It assumed clarity would survive the shift in style. That assumption was costly. Ambiguity is not heresy, but ambiguity is leverage, and leverage in the wrong hands moves foundations. Chapter 2. Modernism without a banner. Modernism no longer announces itself. It does not deny Christ outright. It reframes him. Truth becomes historically conditioned. Doctrine becomes developmental in ways that blur substance and application. Pastoral practice begins to precede metaphysical certainty. Over decades, the result is thinning. Liturgy loses transcendence. Catechesis loses precision. Moral teaching becomes complex. Authority grows hesitant. The faithful are told nothing has changed, while everything feels unstable. This is not revolution, it is erosion. Chapter 3. Why Lefebvre was not imagining things. Archbishop Lefebvre reacted because he saw the erosion. He was not hallucinating. He watched altars turn into stages, seminaries into laboratories, and doctrine into suggestion. He believed the immune system of the Church had weakened. He was wrong to rupture visible unity. Disobedience cannot be the foundation of restoration. But the fact that thousands followed him tells you something was deeply wrong. The SSPX became a symbol of refusal. Refusal to accept that drift was renewal. You do not get that kind of movement unless confusion is real. Chapter 4. Hostility has always existed. Freemasonry's philosophical opposition to the Church is documented history. Popes condemned it repeatedly for good reason. Its religious indifferentism and naturalism stand in contradiction to revealed truth. Were there allegations of Masonic presence within ecclesial leadership in the 20th century? Yes, lists circulated, testimonies were written, none were institutionally proven. But opposition to the Church has never required secrecy to be real, and influence rarely announces itself. Chapter 5. The more subtle threat. Here is the harder truth. Even if no cleric ever belonged to a lodge, the Church could still internalize the same philosophical currents. Naturalism can be absorbed without membership cards. Secularism can be baptized without secret handshakes. When bishops fear clarity because it sounds divisive, when pastors soften doctrine to avoid headlines, when theologians treat dogma as historically malleable, the effect is indistinguishable from infiltration. The sanctuary does not need to be stormed. It only needs to be reinterpreted. Chapter 6. The final trial is not fiction. The Catechism speaks plainly. Before Christ returns, the Church will endure a final trial. A religious deception will offer apparent solutions at the price of truth. The faith of many will be shaken. That does not describe external persecution alone. It describes internal seduction. If ever there were to be an abomination of desolation in the deepest spiritual sense, it would not look like open Satanism. It would look like accommodation. It would hollow the altar while leaving the architecture intact. It would speak of mercy endlessly while redefining sin quietly. It would feel compassionate, and that is what would make it dangerous. Chapter 7. Leo and the Moment. Pope Leo inherits this atmosphere. His instinct appears cautious, stabilizing, managerial. That may prevent rupture. It may also delay correction. The faithful are not clamoring for hysteria. They are asking whether drift will finally be named, whether ambiguity will be closed, whether clarity will return to the pulpit. Because if hostile forces ever sought to weaken the Church, they would not begin by denying Christ. They would begin by softening him. Chapter 8. The Edge of Possibility. Is widespread ideological infiltration possible? Of course it is. Institutions of global moral authority attract opposition. Scripture itself shows betrayal within the apostolic circle. But the more unsettling possibility is this. The crisis does not require conspiracy. It requires cowardice. It requires hesitation. It requires leaders more afraid of cultural backlash than of doctrinal dilution. Christ will preserve his church. That is certain. What remains uncertain is how deep the testing may run before purification comes. The sanctuary still stands. The question is whether its voice will remain unmistakable or whether it will fade into the polite language of the age. That is not paranoia, that is vigilance. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's video and share our passion for defending the true faith with a touch of humor, smash that like button. Share this video with your fellow troublemakers and subscribe so you never miss an episode. As Chesterton once said, a madman is not someone who has lost his reason. A madman is someone who has lost everything except his reason. So, let's keep our reason and our faith intact together. Thanks for listening. God bless you and may the good Lord be praised.